I don't get it. I just simply don't get it. And maybe it's not to get for me. Maybe I should just take this and try to figure out how to incorporate it into my everyday professional and personal life. Because when you look at Bill O'Brien, only somehow a guy like Bill O'Brien could continue to waste talent on his team like he does, continue to find ways to have his team underachieve, continue to find ways to blow it for his squad in the playoffs, and not only not be at risk of losing his job, not only not being at risk of losing his status overall and power within the organization, but actually being able to continue to grow it and increase it. I don't get it. I will never get it. I don't understand it. What the hell does he have on the ownership of the Houston Texans? It's got to be something. Because this is insanity. Before the season even started, after yet another playoff failure, you reward him by giving him even more power as a general manager. So that way, you allow him to trade away a former number 1 overall pick in Jadeveon Clowney for peanuts. Why? Because Bill O'Brien is a moron. Because he mismanaged and bungled and mangled how he handled the whole Jadeveon Clowney franchise tag and contract situation. And yet he persisted. And then on top of that, you talk about trading away a whole hell of a lot of draft pick capital, multiple future first-round picks, to get a very good but not elite left tackle in Laramie Tunsil, who within the next year or two, you're going to have to give big money to, and you don't even have that contract locked down. And yet, he persists. And they persist. And even when you look at how the season plays out, sure, they had some notable victories during the season. There's no question. No thanks to Bill O'Brien. Against teams like Kansas City and New England and Tennessee. Deshaun Watson put up some big numbers, although, again, he took a lot of big hits. Some of that's on him. Some of that's still on the offensive line in front of him. DeAndre Hopkins had another good season. One move that actually worked out, the acquisition of Carlos Hyde, went over 1,000 yards rushing. You still look at this team and you say, their offense, when they didn't have Will Fuller, wasn't the same. And he only played in 11 games, of course, because the dude can't stay healthy to save his damn life. And this defense was god-awful and terrible. 29th against the pass, 28th in total yards allowed. And yet, everybody else, it seems like, other than the Houston Texans, can see the problem here. You're wasting your franchise quarterback. You're wasting DeAndre Hopkins. You are wasting J.J. Watt. You are wasting this talented team due to mediocrity and incompetence of the head coach and now general manager. Or even if you say, well, they hired a general manager, god dang good and well, it don't matter one bit. Somehow, some way, Bill O'Brien has been given so much power in an organization that he frankly hasn't merited or deserved. And even if you say, well, at least he won a playoff game, look at that wild card game against Buffalo. They were down double digits at halftime. They came back, still found a way to let the Bills get in position, kick a game-tying field goal to send the game into damn overtime, and they got lucky that they won it there. Like even that game, even when they win, you still look at them and you say, that's a coaching problem. When the talent that you have does not achieve to their maximum potential, as much as you could say that individual players have to take ownership and responsibility, as they should, ultimately at the end of the day, that is a reflection of the leadership or the lack of leadership within that organization. And that points to who? The guy that you gave all the damn power in the first place, in Bill O'Brien. And if the wild card game wasn't enough to say that he must be fired, then you go to the divisional round. They got a 24-0 lead against the Kansas City Chiefs. And in a situation like that where you're saying, holy crap, you're up 24-0. There's no possible way you could blow this. They found a way to do so and immediately surrendered 41 unanswered points to the Chiefs. And by then it's all over. In a flash like that. And it just comes down to, yet again, Bill O'Brien cost his team in a big spot yet again. Most logical people, most fans in general of the Houston Texans and other teams throughout the league can see what the problem here is. It's Bill O'Brien. So as a result, what does the organization do? They reward him with even more power. How the hell does this work? When I talk about wanting to incorporate lessons from Bill O'Brien in my everyday life, how can you continue to swing and miss, continue to underachieve, continue to achieve nothing but pure mediocrity and disappointing results, and continue to be rewarded? It is just like the corporate world. Damning excellence and rewarding failure and mediocrity. And all the while you're looking at this and you're saying, how's this going to get any better for a team that doesn't have first round picks the next 2 years, for a team that has to figure out a way to pay big money to guys like Laremy Tunsil and Deshaun Watson? How in the hell is this going to get any better? And the answer is it's not, as long as Bill O'Brien's in charge steering the ship into the freaking iceberg. Like him in charge, you can't really say his 2019 draft was all that great. The first-round pick, Titus Howard, who you projected to play tackle, ended up having to go inside the guard and only played 8 games due to injury. You got more out of Max Sharping than you did Titus Johnson. And even if you say, well, you got a bunch of salary cap space, $55 million, again, you're going to have to look at paying Deshaun Watson, paying Laremy Tunsil. And you look at that team and you wonder what free agents would actually want to go to play in Houston that would make a difference. Not to mention they got to figure out what they got to do with free agents of their own, like Bradley Roby, Jonathan Joseph, Fairbairn, the kicker, Carlos Hyde. They got some guys that got to make decisions on. But ultimately, how is this team going to get any better? You look at the draft. They don't have a first-round pick. They don't have a third-round pick, so limited draft pick capital. You still got the guy who can't coach his way out of a paper bag in a playoff game when it really matters, now calling the shots as the general manager and personnel guy. Like, when you look at the team needs, team need number one is a real general manager with real power that isn't Bill O'Brien. Number two is a head coach that isn't Bill O'Brien. We're going to look back at the Houston Texans in 10 years and wonder what the hell was wrong with them. We're going to look back and say, what a missed opportunity. And what a crying shame it was that so many years of J.J. Watt's career were ultimately wasted under the Bob era. What a shame that so many formative and early peak years of Deshaun Watson's career were wasted under the Bob era. It's ridiculous. Like, we could talk about what they need in terms of personnel. Obviously, they need a big focus on the defense. They need help at edge rusher. They need help at corner. They need help on the defensive line. They need help at all 3 levels of their defense. Even if you change defensive coordinators, it doesn't matter because you still got the problem of who's the guy calling all the shots as the head coach and general manager, Bill O'Brien. Like, how is this going to get any better? You just look at it and you say, this guy horribly mangled the Jadeveon Clowney deal. He mangled the Laremy Tunsil deal in terms of how much he had to give up in order to get him. That was crazy and ridiculous, and Miami in no way, shape, or form has to be regretting that deal. They have to love every minute of it. Maybe they regret the Minkah Fitzpatrick deal a little bit, perhaps. But they have no reason to regret the Laremy Tunsil deal. And you waste yet another season of J.J. Watt. Like, you even get J.J. Watt back in time from injury for the playoffs. And this is what you do. And J.J. Watt has big moments like he's trying to overcome. Like, you watch the Houston Texans in the playoffs, especially in that wild card game, and it was fascinating to me. It's like it's J.J. Watt, Deshaun Watson, and DeAndre Hopkins are trying to win the game in spite of their head coach that is trying to guide them to lose the game. And at some point in time, you would have to think the players are going to stop buying into and believing in this guy if they haven't already done so. And at some point in time, this has got to get kind of ugly, you would have to think. Because how many seasons are these guys going to want to waste on big-time playoff disappointments like this for a guy that is clearly in over his head, yet somehow, some way, manages to transcend anything that is close to logic and be put in situations to have even more power? Like, it is so obvious. You fire Bill O'Brien and bring in a competent head coach, the Texans could be a Super Bowl contender. Instead, they're about to burn through and waste 2020 because for some reason, just like corporate America, the Houston Texans decide that they want to reward mediocrity and failure.